Are we? Live recording. Yep. Cool. All right. So yeah. So that previous recording, the previous recording that you sent over, I'll just upload that, even though it's spotty, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, cool. It did pick you up. It did pick you up a little bit. No. When you go into cloud, the cloud setting has the high quality setting was poor, but the cloud version was good because it captures the conversation from its server's point of view as well as from your local view, and it uses the live streaming server's point of view as a backup in case the local futzes out. Yeah. So, okay, what are we gonna do today, bud? All right, cool. Yep. Yep. So you're talking about the formulas of the Dreamcatcher. You have some that the bot thinks are coherent, but you're unsure whether it's correct. Is that right? All right. Well, let's see some formulas. Do you want to? Can you share that chat so I can browse it myself? Or... Dun, 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 All right. Let me teach you about teaching me. Okay. See, here's a difference though. Why is your thread so long? No, like it's got a number of turns. Like you have a number of turns, and you've got this thing where you're saying, "Got it." Like, why are you not concatenating them all in one? What? You're not. Yeah.
sloppy perhaps. There's no reason. We're still under 128k.
It's not 128k. It's 200k. It's just the issue is with each turn you invite the ability to have your chat history truncated, and OpenAI has not published how they do their truncation or when. And so at any,
Yeah.
if you do it as one, you're guaranteed no truncation. If you do it as two, you might get truncation. And I'm like, well, isn't it also less effort from you? Because now you got to wait 31 seconds for it to process each upload. Whereas if you just concat them all and dump them in.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. It was just expedient at the time. There's no other reason than that.
Okay.
Correctly, sir.
Okay.
But that's a good point, well made. Okay, so I don't think, because of the complexity of it, I don't think there's any use for us to go through this in detail until you've had a chance to separately, perhaps, read this. But I've read this through twice now. So this is the sort of 10 for each of them. It's picked up on all the major points.
This is looking familiar. Like this is the second time I've seen this double sum formula come up around it.
Which one? This one?
No, the one above that. It'll be just above that. The one for impact 0.3.
Impact contribution dynamic.
No, up, not down, up. 0.3. One more. There you go.
This one.
Oh, what the fluff? Are we looking at different chats here? Yeah, we might be. So this thing basically flopped out these formulas from largely just the definitions and the transcripts, right?
Well, not even, this is the interesting thing, not even at this point, the definitions.
What?
Give any context.
Sorry, just the transcripts, and this is what flopped.
Yeah. Because we had very precise two conversations where our discipline in the conversation was tight and it was information rich. This is, it doesn't know what the definition of impact is, because we were talking about it.
God, it's almost better that way. Yeah. You know, it's almost better to just do it fresh.
Yeah. I then later gave it the context of the definitions and got it to update the definitions. Well, first of all, I got it to self-check. Another thread to self-check, is it coherent? It's like, yes. Okay, so here's the definitions. And what came back was some fairly minor updates to the definitions. So the definitions are in line with whatever it is we call lore in the end. So what we've got, here we are. So we've got the domains, innovation, definitions now updated. I've not committed these yet, but they reference the maths behind the conversations and are all internally coherent. So for the first time, I think, but for the first time, I think we've got something that is internally complete and coherent. What we've got to do is to figure out whether it's correct or inconsistent.
Yeah. So we still need that diagram, which is like a sequence diagram that shows how the publication steps relate to each other and why. and some deeper worked examples, I guess. I think a deeper question to ask here is how many ways can you come up? Like if you spun the wheel again and we're like asking it to flop again, how different would it be each time?
Yes, this is being manually flopped. It
Well,
ran out for times, I guess.
oh, like you were regenerating, you regenerated multiple times,
Yeah, but
right?
my thinking on that process needs to be automated in that if you were to um, have five bots all thinking about the same thing, they're
Right.
going to agree, let's say, for 8% of the time, and then maybe 10% of the time they are going to disagree, which is really interesting.
That's the
And
valuable
then
bit, right?
the final, yeah, the final 10% of the time, one bot is going to come up with something novel. So that process, I think, to be in order to automate it, obviously, we would need some kind of overarching app that kicked off five credits and then did the comparisons.
Yep.
And then said, right, everyone is agreed on this percent, this 8%, etc.
All right. So,
But
like, okay, so what you've experienced here is manual flopping, and you surmise that if we made an automated system that could flop by, like, say, running it, I don't know, 20 times or running it for as many flops as you stop getting new information, or as many flops as you take before it stabilizes, and you're like, I think I got all the different paths. And then you look at that and you're like, this is all the options that are contained within this model for solving this problem that the model knows about, right? So you've exhausted the model's what's the word for it? Its ingenuity has been removed, has been exhausted.
yes, precisely. There seems to be, if tokens are not a consideration and you can earn as much as you want,
Which we
for
get.
as much time.
Yeah, we're just gonna pay that bill. Like, that's just, this is what these models were meant for. If you can put a load on it that gives you yield after, like, a run that cost 150 bucks and it's giving yield, and that yield is so supreme, such as saying that this model cannot come up with any new avenues of research, and everything that we're saying, like, we haven't been able to add a new avenue, the model hasn't, and it's like, that is the search space. Tick them off one by one, chase each branch down until it concludes as either faulty, cumbersome, or otherwise, right? And then pick the winners out of that, and you're like, here's A, B, and C.
Sorry, man, our display on the conch has gone wrong.
Okay.
Probably because last time we were being much more flexible. So just to uh, finalize the thought, if there are a number of metrics, for example, areas that multiple runs agree on, and multiple runs where they don't agree on something, and new stuff at the start of 10 those agree, then you can get with unlimited funds conversions, which I think is what you're saying. But what was I was trying to specify more exactly in that there are metrics where you can run again, 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 and again, and then eventually you get diminishing returns, and you say, I don't need to run anymore because we've agreed, and
Yep.
then you're sucking the marrow out of the entire thing. So
Yep.
sorry for picking up on the conch thing, but I know the last time we were all over the place because we were dealing with tools. But the value that I got out of our highly disciplined
I have the conch. So, where to go from here? It looks like, whilst these are not, whilst these are not the perfect answers, they indicate a number of different avenues to go down, and it makes the problem feel fenced or contained. And when I look at this, I'm like, with a bit of grinding, we could get there. And so, manual flopping, sure. Flopping with O3 on a platform, sure. But I would say that within a couple of months following this approach, we should have the formulas of the Dreamcatcher in hand.
With some methodology around versus multiple runs on blocking, I'm very optimistic that what you just said is true, that we can actually get something that is solid in terms of the definition that it's coherent, and that not only that we can produce the test runs, we can model, we can project different attribution algorithms and its outcome if we have this planned out. I don't see any thing stopping us from doing O1 Pro, and if we assume O3 Pro is just going to get better with this methodology of lower cost definitions. We think we're almost there because we have our things talking about.
Okay.
The contraindications is the cognitive load of reading what it's coming out with. Is not the token burn time. It took me hours to go through the stuff that is currently committed under the lore in order to actually understand it and figure out, is that what we meant? And there's occasionally it's like, but I was mostly deleting. I wasn't editing. I wasn't changing anything. I was saying that's irrelevant to this. And that's only Coyote stepped in on the actual output once the output was selected.
Okay, so the next, I think that the strategy to apply at all times in this new AI world is to never ever finish a job, because we know that we can, or it seems feasible that we can. What we must do is keep skipping ahead to the bits that are hard, because I think the strategy that is the most frugal is to say that if we're using O1 Pro today and we can do this formula with an effort that's going to be X, then in a month's time, in 2 weeks' time, when we have O3, that same effort will be 0 point something times X. And so what we must do is skip ahead and imagine that we had this formula. Let's just not worry about it being correct. Let's just grab a version of it. It's the game is no longer about getting something right. The game is about being able to redo it rapidly. That's actually what knowledge work is now. No job is ever finished. You're just like, well, I automatically generated that in about a half a day and it looks good enough. Let's roll with it. And the point is to find out what comes next, because the power is to go back and fix it later. And basically what we're trying to do is do renders. So what is the next render to be done? Let's just take the first thing it flopped on, put it into however many pages in as condensed a form as possible. What then, sir?
challenging new thread that only has definitions and the lower and using real world situations in order to render mistakes. And then they have to iterate back using those mistakes and saying actually the lower and definitions are wrong in some place, or get some kind of sense that this is actually correct.
Where will real world data come from, and in what format will it be digested?
The real world data, I suggest, is a step later because we can generate synthetic data until it comes after years.
Can you tell me an example of what that synthetic data would look like and how you might go about generating some that is related to the real world? I feel like it's important to have a target, a real world target in mind, so that we can generate synthetic data for that use case, but also wrap our heads around it a bit better.
Using this process, I think it would be relatively easy, for example, to define a CRM, which is an easier case than attribution. I think using that definition, we can generate using a dumber fault because mistakes are useful. So let's go to 4.0 and generate a bunch of scenarios in natural language, and then go to the smarter vault and apply it and see what happens. We'll get started from there.
I think you hit the nail on the head, but not for the usage of the stupid bots. I think that the first place to apply the attribution algorithm tests is on the CRM itself. And now the CRM I would imagine that we can hook it up to have some synthetic users where we got synthetic customers and we got synthetic operators and all that. And I think that we can set up a system that would generate usage data of the CRM system, where it would look at the Git history of the CRM database, and it would look at prompts going in, prompts going out. And so the format by which we would be ingesting that category of usage data would be prompt inputs and then real world services. So like collecting servicing addresses and all that. And then what we'd do is work out the main goal of that one is to work out the value of the CRM to the business. So we can say that if you charge X, here are your costs, and therefore the CRM software is supplying Y value to you.
So clarification, that sounds understood that the two-step process. We render the CRM work that you've been doing into this format, and then generate threads which independently are different actors within that system, and then apply that to the system. That will give us some idea of its utility. The final point is the benefit, which is a different discussion topic. And the benefit delta between our current system and the system we've got. Is that correct?
right up to the very end. I don't think there's any point calculating the delta. That sounds like a very messy kind of a thing. If we focus on just the instantaneous value, um, because the other component is the future value, how much growth we expect. It means that we can figure out features by their calculated or synthetic impact. So that future forecasting is a key part of making a useful ambient attribution system. I do not believe from skim reading these formulas that the forecasting function has really been considered that often or that much. I prefer to think of it as just mechanical once you have the ambient attribution for the present moment. And then what we do is, yeah, like figuring out in reverse, I don't think actually makes any sense. Like, it, does that make sense? Like,
It does. Essentially, we're saying the forecasting is on the future things that we need to do,
yep,
but not yet because we can just allow the client subjectively to decide what it is, um, and we can propose using the system. We can propose the metrics, and then probably there'll be some horse trading around what that means, what that's going to do in round. Um, I was point out this, which again was generated, um, which was unresolved dimensions, which is effectively how do you deal with dimensions that you don't know whether it's useful or not, and also sort of preference with perspective. But I'll leave you that to look through in detail. But again, these were generated from our previous conversations as pulling up the prompt saying what were we hinting at, but didn't explicitly talk about. And on the screen now, perspective, impact, value, that's both had but not yet realized, but you want to deal with. Now, I'll leave that because it's a long read, so it's quite difficult read. But I think it seems on my two readings to be about right. It's good enough. So I think to go back to your previous what to do next, I agree to get ahead of the wave in that at the moment we've got a good enough definition of attribution. I think in order to test that, we go to CRM and generate synthetic data in order to test that. And the value of it, yes, let's leave that to another day.
yeah, okay. And then that'll give us one lap around the buoy for a problem that is very pertinent because we have to figure out what is a fair price for the CRM, and having a tool to help us would help immensely, I think. Man, I
So it's going to happen.
don't know about you, but I'm feeling an awful lot like this job is not done, but it's pretty much done.
Well, I think we're at the 80% mark where there's diminishing returns. You can churn it more. But what it actually prefers to do rather than churn it more is to test it with the CRM as a render inside of attribution and see what it looks like to grow. I think that's the next step. But I agree, it's not quite done.
What you could simply do is to pass in the formulas that you like and then ask it to have an estimation of a CRM system and to provide a number of different metrics that or usage metrics of the CRM, like number of customers serviced per day, number of admin staff, number of phone calls, and then ask it to try figure out a back of the envelope style calculation.
That is a good idea. So rather than building up the definition of a CRM and then applying it, if we're to put O1 Pro into just say, you know what a CRM is, here's a natural language description of doing kind of CRM is called deliveries and pickups. And you know what dimension it is, you know what time slicing is, you know about attribution, generate the CRM. I think people would get half a day an 80% CRM that didn't necessarily line with the specific customer working towards, but would be close.
Yep. So that when you say I think we're at 80% done, I think our strategy needs to be that when we hit that 80%, we need to move to the next thing. We don't have a running platform. Once we have a running platform, things will be remarkably easier to get to, you'll be amplified to get that last 20% done. So the question I have is, what other areas that are not at 80% do we also need or want that can be fleshed out, tackled, felt out, or gotten to 80% while we get towards platform?
I think our main piece that is yet to be resolved properly, although we've described it in a level, but the dimensions and weightings in terms of attribution. When you read through this, you'll see it's all examples. What in order to get that tighter, dimensions are probably not 80%, everything else perhaps. In order to get that closer to 80% is to provide some kind of real world renders so we can see whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. On the side of that, we're really talking about delivery of this and getting real world usage. I think to you, that's about how you answer questions.
They don't say it's less than that. Well, then maybe that is the question to ask. It just sort of feels like we've got this machine, we've learned how to ask it questions about things that are too hard for us and get meaningful responses back. That trend appears to hasten or will hasten in 03. What other questions do we have? Like, we've got broad, I'm just gonna, if it's okay with you, I'm just gonna have a crack at some like broad as hell strokes. What should we do about being crypto or non-crypto or fiat? What should we do about the gateway company systems so that people can form companies that have shares within them or some kind of a legal backing for operations on a Dreamcatcher? Should we be minting NFTs? What jurisdiction should we go into? What are the areas of revenue for the hosting platform services that we want to supply? What type of compliance is required and how would we go about getting that? Should we raise a public company? Would that be detrimental to our overall cause? what is our overall cause in pure plain statements? Should we have a website? What do you got?
I like what you're thinking. So, referencing domains, what we found is with a couple days effort, we can get an 8%, but it's 8% on the innovation domain. You're talking about other domains that are also necessary. So, for example, decentralized AI, you don't have a domain there to define what the infrastructure is, although we've touched on it in the past, and so I can go some data mining of what we were talking about previously. And so there is a task, I think, to list out what the domains are that we have access to. What's the next thing?
That's a great question. So, what other reasoning domains have not even been stated that need to be? Yep. Another thing that's a task that needs to be done that's sort of like, in a way, labor is figuring out how to give me the tools or features that you want to see first on the platform, like going through all previous recordings, converting them into transcripts, and then running some kind of process on them, things like that.
Here's an idea. Previously, we've been less disciplined in our transcripts, but there is a lot of interesting information there. But now we understand how to properly define a domain and generate from that domain the lore around it and get that to a set type. Then say that is what we're talking about. Sift through all the previous ones and ignore anything that disagrees with what we believe now. But if there's anything that we've missed from what we believe now, then highlight that. But like sifting through sand for diamonds.
Yep.
It's an idea. Possible.
Mate, this is a bit of a problem. I just feel like we've hit the bottom of the container.
I think we've got now what appears to be models that we have in hand right now. Excellent process for defining tightly a domain. I think going up one to figure out what domains we've missed and which ones we need to apply to next is a thing. I think there is one up from that, which is even with the domains that we've characterized, what we missed. As you mentioned a few around crypto and fiat, for example, that we've talked about, but haven't been characterized in the same way. But all this now seems like we have the machine. Now we need to use that machine. I think we've made the here, for example, we've made the precision cutting drill bit. We need to cut some holes.
All right, mate. I see you not watching my hand signals here, but that's fine.
Oh, sorry, man. I was looking away.
So much for protocol. Tokenomics and the construction of a global blockchain. suddenly seem much closer to us than ever before, but they also feel suddenly um, more important, as in everything else has become empty because we can do it so fast. Everything else has lost its value, but a global blockchain that's a marketplace for inference and computation is permanently useful, becomes more useful.
Sorry, I apologize. My hand up there because I was asking you to define what tokenomics was. It's a term I haven't heard before.
Oh,
While doing that, I didn't listen to what you said afterwards. So I apologize.
so hang on. Whenever I see your hand go up, that also means that you've stopped listening. Is that you're also muted? I'm muted to you while your hand's up. Is that?
No, there's about a 10-second lag where my buffer is still filling.
Buffering.
So
Okay.
that is correct.
Ah, right. Okay. So that's an interesting incentive for me to pay quick attention, right? Like I'm like, oh, 10 seconds. Um, Tokenomics is the mechanism of value transfer inside of a blockchain system that describes how external value enters the system and how internal rewards are set to maintain the forward progress of the machine. The tokenomics for us is basically no token or token. That's kind of the thing we've got to decide. I can come up with some reasons for both, but primarily it's we are going to be the attribution blockchain, and it's going to be powered by the calculation of attribution, and whether or not there's also a token that goes with it that has some sort of a mystical AI property about it, such as being dynamically defined by how useful you are as a contributor to the network or something like that. Those types of issues we can debate. And so I just wonder if the time isn't approaching for getting to 80% on the blockchain design, the incentive design. And again, I'd like to press that it's not about getting it right. It's about getting it to a stage where it can be redone very rapidly. And so what will happen is we'll take version 0 of the Dreamcatcher formulas, and then we'll apply the tokenomics generation step to it. And then that'll be one render where we'll start rendering scenarios and implementations, and then we'll be like, oh, the Dreamcatcher formula's got this weird error. Okay, so the blockchain, the tokenomics doesn't work, or some sort of thing, and then back we go again, and we just keep looping the generation. And that, I think, is the key to getting high value as quickly as you're possibly going to get. Don't get stuck on getting it right. Getting it right was for humans. If you can just make knowledge with the click of a button, you need to make it a lot. So keep looping, keep flopping, keep doing different angles and different avenues. And so ideally we'd want to have like, half a dozen possible combinations of Dreamcatcher formula and blockchain implementation, or tokenomic implementation, and we'll sort of jiggle those bits around until we find ones that render well as far as we can render, and then we'll be like, here's the white paper, we're going to build this thing. All yours.
Yes, I like that because we've got our 8% innovation domain. And so we've got something to apply thought experiments against incentives. So there's the domain here that needs to be done, which is modeling out different incentive models, which is a much wider cognitive area to consider. But incentive models are well understood. Well, they've been well researched. But we should be able to take what we've got now and bootstrap ourselves up. Take what we've got now in innovation domain and then render up
another area of good quality work that can be done with O1 Pro and gotten to 80% is the appraisal and critique of the incentivization structures of, say, the top 10 by market cap blockchains or the fastest growing blockchains. And so being able to do competitive analysis on the blockchain ecosystem or landscape is something that we can sort of, I feel like rolling the dice on a few will give us a good feel for how we would want to keep a watchtower focused on all these different things, because the long-term purpose is, please forgive me if I finish this this thought here, the long term, the the economic cunning, if that's what you could call it, for what we plan to do, is that the open source world, first of all, blockchains have to be open source. We know that now. Otherwise, no one trusts you. And what that means is that if you have good watch on the open source landscape, you can see new ideas as they appear, and you can have a process in place to absorb them and then start paying the people who came up with them before they've even got their implementation off the ground. And so this this watchtower that looks at these competitive blockchains should include for us, inside the tokenomics, inside the Dreamcatcher formulas, a process of which upgrade occurs, where we identify novel ideas and assimilate them, and that will keep us fresh and first. All yours.
Brings to mind another idea. So we've got our 80% innovation, and we know we want to use it this way. We're looking for incentives, which is another debate, but the sharp space incentives is a bit large. Then what you've been talking about is the Overwatch, which goes out and looks to see which incentive models can be combined, matched together, which is successful, which should fail, in order to generate that middle gap there of incentives. Now, practically speaking, what we've got is the O1 Pro is trained on old data now, so that may or may not be a problem, but it is something we need to note. We can go to 4.0 to find the information, but it's a dumber bot. So we do have a practical limit on that, but I agree that rather than trying to your hand up.
Yep. The best way that I have found to get new information into the bot is to go find the official docs of the thing that you're thinking about and to bring it in to concat it in. So you'd make a little folder that was like, I'm watching the Agoric blockchain, and then you bring in the key docs that you want to talk about, and then you chat with the bot about that, where you bring in its docs and our domains, and then you compare them and get the comparison going in that sort of way. Now, keep in mind with knowledge cutoffs, O3 ought to have a new knowledge cutoff. Don't know what that'll be. But it's also not about finding all the incentives. The purpose of finding these different areas of incentive is to be able to help the bot flop differently. So it's like it'll come up with its exhaustive list of flops with no external knowledge, and then you can add in these other incentive ideas that have been used in the world, and it can flop in that way too. But theorizing now, I wouldn't be surprised if all that type of stuff is already baked into it, so it doesn't really, may not get much out of that. But that's the general gist of it, right? Overwatch provides us situational awareness to assimilate the bleeding edge of innovation incentives, and we keep watch on it to keep growing and changing over time.
I think we're, I agree with what you said. I think we're conflating two things. Overwatch is there in order to bring in new information, but even given the cutoff of the training data, when we're talking about incentives, we're looking for well thought through evidence, and so that might actually be enough. We're not looking for something that spun up after over 2020 or whenever it was. We're looking for something that's been embedded and been proven, which should be in O1 Pro, which is different from Overwatch. So the reasoning around incentives doesn't need Overwatch. Overwatch needs to look at merging incentives and how they apply. But most of what we need, I think, has probably been done before they cut off.
Yep.
So we should be able to do O1 Pro.
Yep, I agree with you there. Okay, mate, I think I'm out of words on this topic.
Okay, yep, and that is all I want to go through. So over to you for any
Great.
thoughts.
I got some cool stuff. I realized that it's been 5 weeks since we started using O1 Pro. And I feel like after the first couple of weeks of digging around with it, I feel like I feel conversant with O1 Pro. I feel like I understand it. I'm familiar with it. I have a good connection with it, and I can make it do good work. I just wanted to talk.
Sweet feeling, isn't it? Sweet feeling. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would point out it took a couple of weeks, and so when O3 lands, I don't know how much of our familiarity is going to transfer over. Hopefully, a lot of it, but yeah, who knows? Who knows? I've been able to get O1 Pro to answer questions that I couldn't about the code base, in particular, problems of refactoring, where I've got like a bunch of different modules and various states of, because as I showed you, I took apart Artifact and like broke it out into these modules, and now they're all sort of half done, and then I'm halfway here, halfway there. And so the breakthrough for me was being able to define the Artifact interface. So what functions and purpose does it expose without me implementing any of that? And then I was able to say to it, here's all these modules. Here's the thing that I'm sure about. Tell me how to do these bits that you can see are half done. And it rolled out some pretty good, pretty solid advice, I gotta say. And then it got to work coding it for me. So I've actually, I feel like I wish I could describe more what's been going on, but it dawned on me that I haven't actually coded in about maybe three and a half, 4 weeks, maybe. Haven't done any actual coding. I've just been talking about coding, which is weird. I come into Cursor from time to time, and I get the Cursor agent to apply things, but largely it's about the struggle is getting your problem to a point where you can ask a coherent question that could have a valuable answer, and that can be hard if you're stuck somewhere out in no man's land. But if you focus on getting like the finished goal up, then yeah, you can get it. And so all I really wanted to share today was that I managed to get there's 2 data stores that are critical for Artifact. One is the blob store, which is for storing the big chunky Git data. And the second is the atomic store, which is responsible for maintaining the coherence between multiple concurrent processes all trying to, for example, do a commit, do a branch, do a merge. And the atomic store deals with the atomicity of the system. I have not been coding these parts, but they have now been completed by O1 Pro with me talking into my little funny microphone. And it, yes.
Quick question. Just so I know I'm thinking the same thing as you. Definition of a blob.
Binary large object.
Okay, so standard definition.
Yeah, and so what I've done, the architecture I've applied here is that I have successfully connected up Backblaze, which is a S3 equivalent system, but it just like it's 20% the price of Amazon S3, and it's lower latency and faster. I got O1 to write me some benchmarks for it. Here they are. You can see that basically the write time of doing uploads of different sizes is roughly within about 50 milliseconds of the actual ping to the server. Very fast, very cheap, very big storage capacity. And then I've been using DenoKV as the consistency store to do atomic checks on. The piece of interest is this file here, store, where thanks to O1, I was able to reason through with it about some very hard atomicity types of problem that were surprisingly hard. And then the solution was getting complex, and I worked through to get it crushed down into a simpler one. And then we backtracked a few bits, and we kind of wandered all around the solution space in ways that were far faster than I could ever do if I had to think of the solution and then code it and then find out whoopsie daisies. Plus, it generated tests such as these tests, where these tests are so annoying to write. They're like parallel operation tests, concurrency tests, because you first of all got to jiggle inside the system to set it up to be in a sort of a way to have the scene set for where some concurrency could go wrong in the first place. And then you've got to figure out how to make the concurrency happen within your single thread so that you can actually possibly have a problem or prove that there isn't one. And so, thanks to O1 Pro, it just, I had to correct it maybe 3-4 times about this, but that's way easier than me having, it's easier to be a critic than it is to be a creator. And so that's been great. It came up with some concurrency issues that were incredibly subtle, I felt, which were like generating an event stream for events that have happened in a repo. So like if I make a commit, subscribers need to know about that because they need to update their view of which customers there are because something has occurred, right? And so then if you got this issue where you can have lots of activity going on at once, like multiple branches having commits in quick succession, and then your events come down, your events need to be in order. But due to the way that the atomicity works, it uses check and set atomicity within DenoKV. It's hard to maintain the order of the event stream. And so thanks to O1, we sort of both converged on a solution that I thought was honestly bordering on elegant. And this is what is maintaining the consistency within the Git system that's spread across these two databases, the DenoKV store for consistency and the Blob store for the heavy lifting, as well maintaining atomic guarantees under high load without high overhead or rejection due to concurrency exceptions, very efficiently maintaining order of event updates as well, which is something that Deno itself doesn't guarantee. It doesn't give you that guarantee. It's just like, we'll tell you when the key changed, but we might skip over some things if it changes rapidly. And so this piece of code gets around that problem. It's not even that big, and it's kind of fairly easy to read. And this thing. Yep. Yep.
I spent 10 years of my life struggling with Mythology on live databases across different data centers.
Yep.
And obviously that cache on it.
Yep.
There it is. That's a hard problem.
Yeah. Now, I'm actually, just to sort of scope that accurately, there are some huge concurrency problems that the DenoKV database does solve. So I am leveraging on top of that. It's not like I solved the problem from bare bones or first principles, but even then, working within the constraints of the atomicity limits of any given transactional processing system is a nightmare, and it wastes so much time, and you probably got it wrong. And did you really test all the edge cases? I don't know, right? But here's a system that I'm like, I feel confident that I understand it, I think, is the main thing. And I understand why it's right. I'm not like hoping it's right or like agreeing that I know some areas that I'm not sure about. It's like, no, it's right. And like the thing I'm noticing, and what I'm really trying to spit out to you here in a very elongated fashion, I'll admit, just because lessons to do with a machine that is smarter than you are very hard to express in simple terms, the labor or the delay that I'm experiencing in the code, right? Like, I'm still not finished with the CRM piece. I should be, but I'm not. The labor is because O1 Pro is so good at writing code and can point out all the errors and the alternatives and all these things. You almost have to make high quality code, because maybe it's, I don't know if it's a human weakness or something, but it's like, when you know something's faulty, you really can't just let it sit. And especially if it's not you that has to do all the work to clean it up. Like refactoring things can be laborious. And you're like, I really don't want to sit there for half an hour typing. So, yeah, sure.
The interesting thing in all of this is where it gets wrong. So you said that with only 4 or 5 changes, it was right. Can you characterize the sort of things that would get wrong, and is it worth thinking about whether there is a Washington's loop where it would get it right? Can you?
I do not believe. I do not believe so, because the errors were from me. And so at best, you could make a peer prompter that sort of helped you with your prompts and helped you see the different angles that you were likely to introduce and all that. But I really don't, the reasons why I have to reprompt it are never because the bot didn't do what I said. And if it didn't do what I said again, often that's a sign that there's a good reason for that, and I should pay attention or ask it, because I might be asking for something wrong. It has taught me a lot about code and a lot about the Deno system just from using it, just because of some of the design choices and function choices it makes. And so this might be as fast as it can get, if I just got some tooling that got rid of the copy paste. But it's like, I asked this question, I wasn't able to ask a better question. It gave me an answer, and I could work with that to refine my question. It was not a case of the bot got it wrong, and I cannot for the life of me think of how I could have got it right first time, particularly since I was entering exploratory territory. I didn't know what I wanted. I sort of knew, and I knew where to start, and that was problem solving. And this is where I got to. Yep.
I'm experiencing, interesting enough, in different domains. You're in code, knowledge, innovation, architecture piece. I'm experiencing exactly the same thing. It's almost like I'm a dead weight being dragged back into this thing.
Mm.
And the time spent is actually my time thinking through whether the bot will do work, tell it to do, but maybe not what it meant, but also what even if I type them down to be as accurate as possible in terms of my own thinking, internal thinking, and give it as many examples, in there that I can think of. Almost always now the fault is down to not it. And I go back for calls when we were talking about where do we fit in this AI world where it's so easy to do these things. I think that skill, being able to actually focus entirely clearly in your own head, is the skill. Reasoning inside of your own head in order to.
There is also efficiency in terms of how to review the output of the bot methodically and quickly. So you have like a skim versus a deep read. I think it's important to note that you cannot ever hope to not have to read everything that the bot made. You must read it all, because there might be errors in there that the bot's going to build on later. And they will be reasonable errors, but you must read the whole file. That's my painful lesson. I am the slowest, but then it becomes a case of, can I develop techniques to skim faster? Am I starting off at too low a level? Should I be jumping up one and then getting the high level architecture right before diving down? Do I need to do a couple of flops? Those kinds of techniques all come into play to be fast, but there is this limit, and it's us. And I just wonder if it isn't a limit of, like, would we experience a similar limit if we were dealing with law or some aspect of business? Like, is it a limit of coding just simply because of the nature of the programming languages available today, that's as fast as you're ever going to go?
It's possible that it is. I agree in terms of the limit appears to be in how fast you digest and understand what the bot is saying. I think there are a number of heuristics. One heuristic I've been using in producing the raw files is I've been skipping past all the math. I'm just assuming it's going to get match right, so I don't need to think about that. And I've been getting into more verbose, explaining what that math means. So that cuts down my skimming time by about 50%, because I can spot areas
I think there may also be a usefulness for a tool that generates a response, but then something that generates a summary and not in a form that's like, when code comes out, it's in like JavaScript or when math comes out, but it's like in a form that was designed to be read. And so then you can play audio at like one and a half, two times, and it might be easier skim if the bot gives you the skim as well as the detail as well. And it means that you can talk to it. And then I personally find it easier to listen to someone talking than I do to read through it. And so that might speed us up.
Sorry, pause. I've got a knock at the door.
Okay.
Real world. Sorry. Right back.
Additionally, a nice area of integration we may wish to go into is in the purposeful induction of legacy systems that were typically too complex or too costly to revamp, redo, or connect up. And so we now have these tools that maybe that's a good line of business to go into. And at the same time, we can vend in Artifact as a system bus for the replacement system, plus connecting up to a marketplace of suppliers who can deliver services in a cost effective and timely manner whilst maintaining healthy competition between each other and drawing on a global network of ideas to maintain relevancy in a fast changing world. Yeah, but
Okay, sorry about that.
that's all good. Everything okay in the real world?
It's a minor urgent situation where she was about to go off to work, and 5 minutes before she had to leave, realized she didn't know where her phone was.
Oh no.
Very sad about it.
Oh, no. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yes, we were talking about heuristics. I think this is an interesting topic to maintain about how to skim. I like your idea about summarization, um, but also giving the output, for example, from lore for artifact into a first thread, then being able to ask it questions in order to test it, not the thread itself, but to test the reasoning behind its input. I think it's really quite powerful way of doing it. And you can also use it to run models, um, say, generate some data, and here's a situation, and what happens. And that will be a single thread because we've already defined what it's talking about. Okay. So as well as the heuristic of assuming it gets all the facts right. As you're doing it, your idea of summarizing it, I agree. I think actually putting the whole thing into a thread where you're asking for summaries, but you can also ask it for bullet points. You can ask it, is there, create, this system should be able to do this, can it? I think that heuristic might be a good way of checking very large quantities of information.
Okay, so you're really just talking about techniques that once we have the platform online, we can incorporate numerous other tools to increase the rapidity with which we can generate meaningful output. And the key being we find ways to input context or instructions or knowledge into the machine and it gets leveraged upon each time. So you never have to tell it anything twice. It's always building on what you've put in there before. It's extracting out rules and heuristics that you like and it tries to apply them tirelessly as you go. So there's still a sound barrier there, and the only way to overcome the sound barrier or the speed of knowledge barrier is to go higher and higher levels of abstraction. So you get up from, for example, for getting up from code, I might go into architecture or other types of higher level domains. But no matter what tools we make, there's approaching some kind of a knowledge barrier where you just can't handle what the machine has to say any faster, and that seems to be the limiting factor of this new surge.
I agree. This is what was behind, represent my question about what did you have to do in order to do those 4 or 5 changes in code that you mentioned. Now, if you are confident that the code was being produced without any need to go in, at what level would you actually be discussing? So you go up and you talk about architecture, um, and you just assume that the output, uh, like flying a plane, you're assuming the engines are producing power, and you're only pushing forward. But I don't think we're there yet. Hopefully, may do that. Something to look out for. But that idea that over time, what we're looking at is going more and more meta because the value of checking outputs at the lower level is lower than working at the level 1 level. Maybe that's a pattern that we're looking at.
Don't know. That's all that I wanted to say on this topic. Um, I'm still working on the CRM, working very hard, but it just seemed that I kind of inadvertently backed out artifact along the way, kind of by sort of accident. So it's been doing the CRM, but also building just enough artifact to run the CRM, because it was either freaking Postgres and deal with the quirks there, or artifact and deal with the quirks there. So far, so good. Honestly, it's very hard to estimate these things. Feels like maybe another day or two. Who knows? It's just, yeah.
I have nothing more to say on this site.
Okay.
Suggest is I'm hoping that this conversation has been recorded properly.
Okay. Well, should we stop it there? And okay, we'll stop it. Yep.
Stick on. We can actually have a.
So your screen stopped sharing as well. I can't see your screen anymore. No, a button came up and it asked me to keep the